What's up guys, the Lazy Goldmaker here. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about what you should do the first couple of days of Mr. Pandaria. So I'm going to talk about specifically the first 4 days, which is where it's most interesting to talk about specific what can happen on a specific day. And then it's going to be a period of time until the raid opens, which is sort of when we go into more steady state mode. But the basic idea is that you want to level your professions as early as possible, and you can often start crafting for a profit as early as day 1, day 2 in an expansion. In multiple recent expansions, I've been able to essentially level my professions for a profit if you focus on the right recipes. Haven't looked into how possible that is, but for some professions that is for sure going to be possible in Mr. Pandaria as well. Generally speaking, even with materials being the most expensive, they probably will ever be day 1, day 2. Well, not all materials, but materials being expensive early on, it is still worth it to power level your professions if you have the gold, because you'll usually make that back because, well, there's a lot of demand for anything you can craft as well, or at least for a lot of the things you can craft. So I would strongly suggest going into to maxing out your professions. So what does that mean? Day one, at least if you're starting on launch, you should just be leveling. Level your main, get all of your characters into Pandaland and get them to their profession trainers to unlock Pandaria professions, and then just level your main. For at least a couple of hours. There isn't going to be much on the auction house for any reasonable prices. If you have a second account, then obviously just sit that on the auction house and pay attention to any materials that you know you want. If you have a bunch of inscription alls, just check for herbs. Then a couple of hours in, you can start looking at the auction house. Generally speaking, there's very few people buying early on. So there are going to be people posting, but you don't know the price. It's going to be very variable supply and prices, but you can do some reasonable deals often day 1 on materials, but it's not the best day. So usually I will just, if there are good, decently priced materials, I might buy some. Usually I don't buy much. Day 1, I just level my characters and unlock professions and call it a day. But for something like herbs, for instance, which is much easier to farm, and no one's really going to be crafting with that for alchemy. So if you want to do inscription, I think checking out herb prices is a really good idea at day 1. Now day 2 is where the auction house starts being full. This is where you can start finding items. Most materials will be up, and there's going to be supply. And this is where I would definitely start leveling professions and looking for profitable crafts. I'm sure the sweaty players will be reaching max level on day 2. So there's going to start to be demand for max level stuff. There's also going to be demand for any gear you can equip while leveling. That's going to be useful at max level. So for instance, the engineering Ghost Iron Dragonling, it's definitely a big trinket that's equipable at 87 that you want to get out onto the auction house as soon as you can. If you have an engineer, or if you have engineering on your main, this is going to be a really good recipe to start selling, and obviously the Tinker's gears that you socket into it as well. So this is where I would definitely look into getting most professions leveled if I can. I'll be looking through all of them, unlocking recipes, and then I will also, day 2, start looking for profitable crafts, which is mostly going to be stuff helping to level, or maybe some items that are used for gearing out fresh level 90s. You'll also obviously want to level your main, particularly if you have a profession that requires reputation recipes, or if you're planning to do a lot of Spirit of Harmony farming, for instance. Unlocking your tiller farms, definitely something you want to do. And there are a lot of daily cooldowns, like most of the professions have daily cooldowns in Mists of Pandaria, so that's also a reason why you want to get your characters to level 9, or get your professions to where you can unlock the daily cooldowns on day 2. Particularly important for jewel crafting, for recipe unlocks, for inscription, for Darkmoon card crafting, and very useful for tailoring, for the Imperial Silk, for alchemy, for the transmutes. So yeah, you definitely want to get it there sooner rather than later if you can. Material prices will often have stabilized a bit on day 2 as well. There is still a lot of variability because people are buying mostly to level their professions, but there are going to be profitable crafts for sure, so you are going to be able to see some prices stabilize. Now, day 3 is where things start to get a little bit towards the steady state. Leveling characters and starting to restock any markets that are profitable. Day 3 is also where you can start looking to pick up cheap or pick up some herb supply. There is the option of stocking up a reasonable quantity of consumables for the raid opening. Now, obviously, what has happened in most launches is that herb prices start a little bit high, then they go a little bit down, and then they stay steady, and then sometimes they go up for raid launch. But it depends on how much is used for the inscription trinkets versus how much is used for alchemy consumables. But outside of inscription, there isn't really much of a use for herbs until the raid launches, because people don't really use flasks for just farming heroics or whatever. They don't use potions, so that it's going to put a damper on demand until you get into the raid. But that is also a kind of risky proposition. This is also where you definitely want to unlock consumable recipes and start making sure that your consumable characters are ready to go for raid launch, and the same with enchants. Also, jewel crafting, stocking up on ore and or gems is often really good, because people don't really buy gems, or at least not the rare gems, until they're either pre-base finished or they start getting drops from the raid. That's also something that has spiked up very heavily in Wrath, I remember, and something to keep an eye out for. It might be worth stocking up on some ghost iron, and particularly trying to stock up on some cheap kyperite once people start farming dread wastes and there's no real meaningful volume usage for kyperite as compared to ghost iron. So yeah, that's sort of the first 3 days. Your main focus should be to level your professions as early as you can, and then take advantage of early leveling items on day 2, because they can often sell for a really high profit and sell really well. And then as soon as you finish that, you want to go into gear crafting, the entry-level PvP gear, entry-level rare gear. All that stuff is going to sell really fast, and then you want to transition to epics for more high-end previous gearing if you have access to Spirits of Harmony, and eventually enchants, gems, and consumables as we get closer to the raid and people start buying more of those than they do for just their previous or dungeon farming sets, where people aren't always full best on the enchants. So yeah, that's what I would do the first couple of days. Hopefully you have some success with that.